Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking time from your busy day to join us for Show and Tell Canadian Pizza Innovation. I'm Colleen Cross, editor of Canadian Pizza Magazine. Today, we check in with top chefs across Canada to learn what they're up to and how they're innovating. We'll learn about different styles and gather ideas that hopefully you can use to refresh your own operation. We're excited to hear from the chefs, but before we get started, a little housekeeping. You, the audience, will be in listen-only mode. You'll see a full screen of speakers, and you can adjust that view using the Zoom control panels at any time. If you have any questions, type them in at any time using the Zoom question feature to the right of your screen, and you will be able, or maybe the bottom of your screen, you will be able to, we'll try to answer them on the spot, and there will be a short session at the end of the webinar to ask any questions we didn't get to. We expect a lot of questions. We hope you'll have a lot to say. So if yours isn't answered right away, rest assured, we will relay your question to our speakers today and try to get at some answers for you. We'll start by hearing from the Baking Association of Canada, who is sponsoring this webinar. We'll hear the results of a fun poll that we took when you registered. Then we'll hear from our featured chefs, one after the other. And finally, as I mentioned, we'll take more questions. So also, today's webinar will be made available to all of you who registered 24 hours after we complete the webinar. So watch for that in your inbox. If you get called away, something going on in the kitchen, don't worry, you'll be able to see the whole presentation at your leisure. And of course, if you feel the urge to post on social media platforms about today's sessions, we encourage that, and share and spread the word about the magazine, the Baking Association, and these wonderful chefs. And now I'd like you to meet Martin Barnett. Martin is the Executive Director of the Baking Association of Canada, who are presenting this wonderful webinar. And he's an accomplished baker himself. Martin's wide experience since 1977 includes running medium-sized wholesale and retail bakeries in Victoria, working for Fairmont Express Hotel, teaching at Vancouver Island University, and more recently launching Serafina's Oven, a small artisan baking training and consulting business in Ladysmith, BC, which features a wonderful wood forno, which Martin can tell you more about. Hello, Martin.
Hello. Thank you, Colleen, and thanks for the intro. I don't have to introduce myself now. Looking forward to this webinar, our first co-hosted webinar with the Annex and Baker's Journal. Looking forward to hearing from Sarah and Tracey and Michael. And glad that you all joined us. I just want to say a little bit about the Baking Association of Canada. Since I've been involved over a year ago, one of our initiatives was to expand our membership categories. And of course, what better category than to embrace the pizza industry? It's, after all, it's bread with wonderful toppings on it, using the same equipment and having the same challenges, successes as other bakers. So if any of you out there would like to join the Baking Association of Canada, you can go on our website, baking.ca, and get more information, or call me directly. We look forward to embracing you in our organization. We are involved in advocacy for the industry, mentorship. We support students through our fundraising on the local level. We have education initiatives, and of course we have the Bakery Showcase, the annual bakery trade show, Canadian trade show. Next year will be in Vancouver on May the 14th and 15th. We're going to feature the Pizza Chef of the Year at that showcase. So hopefully you'll all attend and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Martin. And I encourage all of you to check out this organization. If you've ever thought of being part of something, there isn't really something specifically for pizza, and pizza is a great fit with the Baking Association. And any of us, Martin or myself, or checking out the website, you can learn more. So please look into that. Now, I understand we had a little poll as you registered. I'm not sure if we have the results of that yet, but I just wanted to share, just to give an idea of who's out there watching the webinar today. We asked you how to describe your pizza. I think it was in five words or less. So I'm just looking at some of the results here. And I'm not seeing the results, but we'll just move on. And whenever we see those, we will get into that. We're going to start with our first speaker. Chef Sarah Wallbank is owner of Camas Fine Foods, Inc. in Nanaimo, BC, near Nanaimo, BC. She will talk about drawing on the collective cultural influences of your community and creating feature menu items and memorable dining experiences, as well as a positive working environment. Hello, Sarah.
Hi there. Good morning, everyone. As Colleen mentioned, I'm a chef, owner, operator of Camas Fine Foods. We're in Lantzville. We're just adjacent to Nanaimo. If you blink, you'll miss it, but it's become something of a dining destination since we set up shop in this little town. So that's been really quite fun. And in addition to owning, operating, chefing in the restaurant world, we do consulting as well as catering, and catering right now is where our pizza plays a feature role. And so today, in terms of being innovative in your businesses and creating an impact, I wanted to talk a little bit about how, very simply, like your crust and your toppings, it sounds like a really simple formula, can really create a positive impact for increasing your revenue, increasing your return customer base, your repeat customer base, creating a positive corporate culture, as well as retaining staff. So basically it comes down to keeping curious and how we can create feature menu items and at the same time build a really positive work culture that is going to benefit you by leaps and bounds by creating this really sort of like open conversation about food, inviting people to the table and talking about their interests and their experiences. And so I think there's a lot of ways that you can engage formally and informally with your staff, with your customers, and then the community at large. Asking people about like their personal experiences, what their heritage is like, what their traditions are like. And when you have that sort of genuine interest, when you have that genuine interest in what people's experiences are, and you're listening in an engaged fashion to them, you know, you create this reciprocity of understanding and a sense of comfort. So you've got sorry about that. I'm going to have pings apparently. Let me just adjust my phone to the airplane mode. Sorry about that. So having those genuine interactions in terms of making the connections, and you're building your menu, it serves you double fold. So what do I want to say about what I want to say about that engagement piece is how you can draw on just their experiences for recent travel. And I mentioned like their culture and their heritage, but also global and seasonal changes. So what are their ideas about what feature items should be coming to the menu? So we're entering autumn right now. One pizza that's always been fabulous for us is pear gorgonzola, almonds, and honey, right? So you can find all of those pretty much across Canada in this season, and feature that on your menu as like as a seasonal offering. And that's just like one inspiration that's, you know, showing what you can access for less cost. There's like a seasonal glut, you know, but it's exciting and interesting. Not many people are making pizzas maybe that have like sweeter toppings. You can create it savory, do the sweet and savory by having prosciutto added to that. Just like as an example, keeping on like the Italian riff. And then another way to engage in terms with your guests, person to person, but also through your social media campaign, where you can invite people to contribute online, to respond, send in pictures, send in their ideas. And then I would encourage you to respond to each person individually to really build that build that relationship, that they see that you're listening, because they're watching for your response online. And even if you don't use like their idea in particular, then I would say that it would inspire you to sort of create a riff on what it is that's been suggested. I would also like to add that if you have any trolls, that you just hide those comments immediately. We don't need to invite anybody saying like, oh, that's a silly idea for a pizza or something like that. Keeping things really, really positive, I think, is important. And then just with regards to creating like those feature menu items, I don't want to suggest that you create like a separate product line. So for me, I was doing traditional Napolitan style pizza, and it's quite a thin crust where we'd be doing 250-gram bowls of dough. So sometimes we would want to create a pizza that had a heavier topping. So maybe like during Diwali, we're doing a pizza that featured Indian sauces and flavors. But you know, that pizza crust won't support that or hold that. So just adjusting your production in terms of like how much you're stretching it or the shape that you're creating in order to accommodate, so you don't have to make a whole separate recipe, a whole separate dough. It's just modifying very simply what it is that you have already on in your menu flow. And then I have a picture that I sent you earlier that just has like some examples of different pizza shapes to give you some ideas. So she'll share that in just a moment, but it's sort of in response to, there we go. So some of them are trends like that really impressive, like pizza pie down in the middle quadrant. But as you're responding to, you know, global events, seasonal events, calendar events, time of day. So we have a calzone there that has hollandaise sauce with it. There's eggs inside. It's like a breakfast calzone. We've got a pizza racchetta there. So that's the one that looks like half calzone, half pizza. It's supposed to look like a pizza racket. Great in the summertime for, you know, when Wimbledon's happening, or if there's an event in your area that's, you know, that you can again like riff on and piggyback. The heart-shaped pizza, of course, for Valentine's Day. You can do a clover for St. Patrick's. Sort of the sky's the limit in that regard. And one of my personal favorites is in the lower right-hand corner, and that's the pide. So when I was traveling in Turkey, I was introduced to this flatbread. It's a boat shape. I mean, if you're near the water, you might be able to, you know, play that up to a certain degree. And then it holds like, you know, obviously wonderful toppings, and you don't have to do much more beyond what, beyond creating like the topping mise en place and for your regular service. And then there's one that I do have a little picture of it. So the one that's above the pide, the one that looks like a boat, and that one's farina. That's a soca or torta di sece. So if you had room on your menu for a gluten-free base, this is it. It's super simple. You're cooking out chickpea flour, putting in any kind of like flavorings that you like into that pastry, and then creating a shape. It can go into your regular oven or your forno with pizza toppings, and it's a really neat way to include people that are gluten intolerant into your pizza world, and it's healthful and delicious. And then the other thing that I wanted to say specifically about your feature menu items is that they should be leaving more cash in the business. And by that, I mean, the menu item doesn't need to be more expensive in print for your guests, for your customers, but your food cost and your labor cost should be a lower percentage of what it is that you're charging. So connected to that, I wanted to say about the word feature menu item. Special implies it's on sale, it's a cheap price. If that's your brand, then that's truly authentic and run with that. But if you're like mid-level to finer dining, then I would suggest that you eliminate the word special in order to create like a sense of like celebration. We're using the word feature, right? Because it's an unusual item. It's only here for a limited time. And it's really just like an exciting opportunity to taste and try this new invention that you've cooked up in the kitchen. And then just returning back to that idea then of how creating unique toppings inspired by your community, your immediate and expansive community, can really have a positive impact on all aspects of your business, and you can have a further reach. So that's what I have to say, I think, about creating some inspiration in terms of your menu and creating that really positive work environment by keeping curious, asking questions, and listening with engagement.
Thank you, Sarah. Wonderful comments. Really educated about the different shapes that you can come up with. Very creative. Can you tell us a little more about, you do catering as well? That's a main feature of your menu. Can you tell us about some of your experiences lately?
Sure. So we do, in addition to our restaurant, which we're casual fine dining, we do catering and feature menus. We host private parties in the restaurant and off-site. We have a portable pizza oven that we use, and we offer several styles of pizza depending on what it is that the client is envisioning for their celebration. We use like traditional Napolitan style pizza cooking methods most often. So we run our forno at 900 Fahrenheit. We're stretching classically, but we also do tarte flambée, which is a very thin crust pizza, traditionally with toppings of potato, leeks, and cheese, a bit of like creme fraiche. So there's those two typical crusts that we bake with, as well as the sokas, or the chickpea base. And our pizza oven's great because it's about 60 pounds, and you can just strap it on your shoulder and off you go. In 30 minutes you can be up and running.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Events are getting going again. That's a great feature.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, the events are certainly more back on the table than they were about 6 months ago. So it's really exciting.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sarah. If anyone has questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A box. I don't see any at the moment, so what I'll do is I'll read from our poll. I have our poll results here, but everyone feel free to type in and we'll get those questions to Sarah. So we asked people in 3 or fewer words to describe their pizza. So we had some fun responses. Non-North American, we had fermented rustic, pretty good, modest pizza, legendary, little less modest, juicy, cheesy, meaty, descriptive, yummy, yummy, yummy. I like that one. Craveable, unique, and seasonal. Award-winning. Wow, that's probably the only word you need if you're going to use that word. Hot honey, cheese, prosciutto. Yummy. I think it was 5 words I gave you. New York style, made with love. And we have one that's balanced, addictive, with textures. Great descriptions, everyone. We have so many of those. Let me get a few more in. Wood-fired oven, thin, quality ingredients. Quattro stagioni. That's pretty good. Better than yours. I like that. Better than yours. Okay. Little friendly competition. This industry is all about that. And a couple more I'll read. Our sweet jerk chicken. That's a nice butter chicken. We have some different styles. Rustic, simple, delicious. Well, you can't beat that. Bacon, pear, and brie. I'm there. It's after lunch, but maybe for supper. Well, we're going to move on to our next chef. Thank you again, Sarah. And I'm just going to see if we have any. We do have a couple of questions for Sarah. Let's see. When you cater for large groups, do you partially pre-bake the dough at all?
Yes, for larger groups, we will do like par-baked prep. So we take it to a certain level. It does have, the dough absolutely has to be gelatinous to a certain degree. And one of the tricks that we'll incorporate is we'll have like a base sauce, and then we'll do the par-bake. And then when it's time to finish it, we put on the final toppings, rebake it, and then that way it stays fresher and tastes better. And then we'll have some that are being stretched and topped like a la minute at that time. So we have like a good flow then where we'll have like 2 or 3 people just working one oven, and then things can come out quite quickly, because with our pizza oven, we're still baking in about 90 seconds. But depending on what's going on around us, we don't always have the capacity to build and bake and cut and serve in sort of the most expedient way properly. So or possible rather. So yeah, short answer, yes, par bake, fresh toppings, rebake, and then serve.
Thanks, Sarah. Great practical question. Thank you for that. And I just want to give a shout out to Andy Lewis, who just noted his 5 words or less. His pizza is Neapolitan style, simple, quality ingredients. And any other questions, feel free to type those in. Thank you again, Sarah. That was really great ideas. Thank you for sharing. And we have Michael Angeloni of Amano Trattoria in Toronto, who will discuss and demonstrate to one of his specialties. It's a pillow-like, I'm going to get this wrong. I'm going to try to pronounce it, a pinza or pincha. And Michael will correct me when he speaks, I'm sure. It's a Roman style pizza that you may not have seen at restaurants. It's not all that often seen. You sometimes see that other al taglio style. It's an exciting pizza style featuring a specialized fermented dough and often a rustic oval shape. And I'll let Michael tell us more.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, I'm Chef Mike Angeloni. I have a few restaurants in Toronto and across Ontario. The one that I am currently in is Amano Trattoria, where we do, it's in the classic sense of a trattoria. So, you know, there's pizza, pasta, fish, the whole shebang. The restaurant's about 240 seats. So one of the things that I really wanted to do was some form of pizza. In my travels through Rome over the last like 15 years, when I go to Italy, I always stop into Rome. I'm sure most of you have been watching the Netflix Chef's Table Pizza edition. There's Bonci in Rome. That was kind of one of my classic stops. He does the Italio style, which is like the most common Roman style pizza that you'll see, which are the trays. That style is very common. It's almost fast food to this point. Bonci kind of took it to another level. In my travels, I found this pinza, P-I-N-S-A, as you can see by my t-shirt. Pinza is, it's sort of an ancient Roman. It was before pizza was pizza. Pinza in its inception is very similar to pizza. It's, you know, a thin crust with toppings on top. Very, very simple in that sense. Where it's different, I think the biggest differences, one is the hydration of the dough. So I think in Napolitana style, typically you're going to see around 80% hydration. Our pinza dough is about 90 plus hydration. So the dough is very, very wet. You can't actually work this with your bare hands. You need gloves because it is very, very tacky. What that allows it to do is gets very thin, very crispy, very airy, and quite a lot different than your typical Napolitana style, which is also very delicious, but much different. All Roman style pizza is always baked twice. So it has a par-baked base. So the Italio style is the trays, you're baking them off. Pinza, you're baking a straight up base. I have a couple here that I can show you. So this is sort of the shape that we go for. Our balls are about 250 grams. And like I said, the restaurant's 240 seats with, you know, meat, fish, everything going out, all trying to go out at the same time. In my pizza oven, which I'm in this area here, this is called a Amano. So it's actually a separate area in the kitchen. And we have to, you know, communicate through walkie-talkies. It's a bit of a nightmare. So what doing pizza allows us to do is we have the par-baked bases. The total cook time on a pizza is about 8 minutes. much slower, much lower temperature than a traditional Napolitana style where you're cooking in a wood burning oven at 700 degrees. Pinza, we're cooking at about, my deck oven is set 260 degrees Celsius on the top and about 250, 245 on the bottom. So it's a slower bake. You get a longer cook time. You get a really sturdy dough, which ends up holding up to a lot of toppings. So you want to do lots of stuff on top, after, before. It really gives you a really great crust, a really great crunch, and a really great vessel for doing lots of fun, cool, interesting ingredients. Another differentiator between a pinza and a pizza is the crust. So actually, let me bring it back. Sorry. So what a pinza has is called an open crumb. Those that don't know what an open crumb is that you have air pockets throughout the dough. On a traditional Napolitana style, it's just on the cornetto, so the outside, the crust. That's where you'd see all of the air, excuse me. Whereas the center part is almost like, thinner. That's where you get the crispiness. And the outer side is the more doughy. You have the blistering and all of that. On a pinza, you have an open crumb through the entire piece of dough. So I have a piece here you can see. You get the air pockets all the way through. So essentially the entire dough is that crunch, is that crust. So it's really, really wonderful in that sense. What else can I tell you about the dough? So like I said, it's 90% hydration. Our dough follows the sort of a version of the classic. So we use all natural sourdough. So we have two different fermentations going at all times. One is a dry levain and one is a wet levain. What that does is the wet contains a percentage of rye flour, which gives us the flavor that we're looking for, which is that sour, that sour, yeasty, natural flavor. And the stiff levain is what gives us the strength and the rise that we're looking for. The dough itself contains 7 different types of flour. We have a 0 flour, a double 0 flour, some local AP flour. We have strong baker's flour, semola. Again, I mentioned a little bit of rye flour. In the traditional sense, pinza, if you go back, you'll see that there are some recipes that go with actually rice flour and a percentage of soy flour. So it's really open to interpretation. I was telling this story before we jumped on, but when I started this, I had pinza when I was in Rome. Thought it was really cool, and I was like, it's just such a great idea to bring to Toronto because I hadn't seen it anywhere. But I was like, I'm going to figure this out. So I went online, I got books, and I just started trying to figure out this recipe. And then I put up an ad for a pizzaioli to come in, and just mainly the idea was to work service because I was like, I can figure out the dough. He came in, this gentleman by the name of Francesco, who was from Rome. He was looking for a job, and he said, "Oh, you want to do pizza?" He's like, "Okay, show me what you're doing." And he looked at the dough and he was like, "This is not right. This is terrible." So then him and I went through all of the stages and what we were doing wrong. And one of the biggest things that I found in my fermentation was that I was doing wrong was I was trying to do all sourdough using just a wet levain. And he introduced the idea of doing a stiff or a dry as well, because we weren't getting the structure that we wanted. We were getting the rise, we had the flavor, but it was collapsing a little bit. It didn't have the same strength. And that was one of the biggest things. And then it's really looking at the protein percentages within the dough and understanding the flours. One thing with Canadian flours that's difficult is that they don't identify the actual amount of protein. A lot of them, some of them do, but in Italian flour, you can get every single descriptive element. So you can understand where the dough is changing, how it's changing, what you need to add. Is it more stiff flour? Is it more double O flour, etc. So again, it's really just working with the dough and trying to figure it out. I have some raw dough here that I was going to show. I'm just going to pull my camera down slightly so you can see here. So one of the other elements to pinza is the shaping. So like I said, we have 250 gram balls. We do a bulk fermentation for a minimum of 3 days. Then we shape, and then we let them proof roughly around 7 to 8 hours. The bulk fermentation helps as well for people with dietary restrictions, so gluten intolerances. What bulk fermentation does is helps to break down the gluten. So when you're actually eating it, it doesn't sit so heavy on your stomach, as opposed to, like, you know, you have a pizza that's, you know, whatever, grocery store frozen pizza. There's not that bulk fermentation. The dough hasn't been allowed to mature, so it sits very heavy on your stomach. Whereas bulk fermenting, that helps, as well as it helps with the flavor. The last step that I want to talk about is just the actual term pinza is the motion of setting up this dough into shaping it. It's the motion of pinzing, like this. So we take lots of semola, like quite a lot. Again, this also gives it a nice crunch and texture. And we go around the dough, just like this. And what that does is traps all the air within the dough, okay? And now we take our fingers and kind of do this motion. So you get a pinz, the pressing, and then we take it out. So what that does is it kind of, you know, sets up the air pockets so that when you bake it, you end up with all the different crusts and that open crumb that we talked about. And it's really, really lovely. The last thing I will mention is, so this is kind of a finished product. So we've put some prosciutto di Parma, some fior di latte, and a little bit of arugula. When you're topping a pizza, it's really, you can go all over the place with what you want to do. We do 6 different kinds at the restaurant currently. We start, all of our pizza has either a red base or a white base. Red base being just tomato sauce, which is just high quality tomatoes that are passed, not cooked. It's not cooked down with a bunch of stuff. It's just simply pureed tomato or a passata. And then our white base is thinly sliced Yukon Gold potatoes and some fior di latte cheese. And that is the 2 bases. And then you build the toppings on top of a pizza, and then you refire. So it really helps with execution for service. Like I said, 240 seats, trying to get everything to line up with timing. This really helps us to execute at a high level. I think that's pretty much the gist of it. So,
Thank you, Michael.
no problem.
That's great. You gave us a great overview there, and lots of detail too about the fermentation. I'm wondering if, in case anyone uses this other term, is semolina cornmeal? Is
No.
it similar?
So there's semola, semolina, rimacinata, which is the rimacinata just talks about the grind, but semola is flour. It's just a different part. It's durum wheat that is ground. There's different textures of it, but for what we use a rimacinata. But it is 100% it's flour. It's not corn.
Flour, right. So the act of having opening the dough on top of it.
Yeah.
What does that do? How do you describe what that does and how that's different than doing it on a flat surface?
Yeah, so you really want that pocket of semola, the pile that I have, because when you push your fingers down, you want your finger to not hit the table. because if it hits the table, it just goes flat. So you end up just pressing flat. You don't end up with all the little pockets. So if you press, you're pressing into the pile of semela, which gives you those distinct, like bubbles throughout the dough.
I see. Yes. And we have another question about the stretching, about the opening. They're wanting to know, is there no stretching at all? Is it really just the poking to get that?
You use your fingers to that act. Like I said, it's pinza that's where the terminology comes from, is the act of pressing it out. So you're not pulling and shaping like you normally would with a Napolitana style. You're literally laying it down and pressing it out. It's really important as well with this particular dough, the initial shaping. Like I said, we do the bulk fermentation, portion the dough 250 gram balls, and then, like I said, it's very tacky because it's 90% hydration. You need to really shape it properly. If you don't shape it properly, when you go to punch it out, your shape is going to be all over the place. So it's very important, the actual pulling and setting the dough up into the correct form.
Right. And I'll just add one more of my own. Is it do you have kind of a formula for the weight of the toppings on top of this kind of dough? Is it kind of an art to it, or do you kind of use a particular weight, or
Nope.
only so many toppings?
No, the dough has such a great structure that, like, you can go all over. Like, we do one with like finishing it with braised beef, like an oxtail, basically a ragu that goes on top. So after it's cooked, you put it on top, and it still has that really amazing crunch and crust. It won't sog, it won't droop. You obviously don't want to like dump a soup on top of this, but it really will hold up to pretty much anything. And it's very versatile in the idea of, like, we have one that has some soppressata that we put on at the beginning. So it goes in, the salami gets nice and crispy. But then we have like the prosciutto di Parma where we pile it on after. But you could, again, if you look up pizza recipes, there's people putting like, sauteed shrimp on top and scampis and things like that. But it can go very, very versatile.
Oh, that's great, Michael. Thank you. And so you have Amano Trattoria, and do you have a sort of a commissary situation going with some of your other locations, or the restaurants?
Yeah, so the pandemic obviously hit a lot of people hard. Our business, we had 9 restaurants, 350 employees. We were down to about 145. Still 9 restaurants. I, in the pandemic, opened a business called Chef Drop, which is, we have a commissary kitchen in the north end of Toronto that does at-home meal kit delivery, and the pizzas are actually going on to that, the pandemic shift. But Amano Trattoria does, we do commissary for my other restaurants as well here. That's actually why I'm here on the day that we're closed. Because we don't have the staff, as I'm sure most people are having the same issues. So instead of me having a bunch of kids trying to make some stuff in different locations, I'm making it for them, and then I have a driver drop it off. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing. I'm sure we'll have some questions as people mull this over if they haven't seen this style before, and we'll have some questions at the end, and you can all weigh in on that. Thanks so much for the demo and
Thank you.
creative ideas. Yeah, well, thank you. We will go to Chef Tracey Muzzolini. She's joining us from Christies Bakery in Saskatoon, and she's using a wood-fired oven to demonstrate hand shaping techniques and a little about how controlling the fire can affect the cooking of a pizza crust in the oven. And I'm sure she'll have lots else to say. Tracey will be well known to those of you who watched Wall of Bakers, where she was a judge, and many other accomplishments in her career. And I'm going to turn it over to Tracey because I'm sure she has lots to say. Hey, Tracey, over to you.
Hello, Colleen. Thank you, and Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Martin, for organizing this webinar. It's really fun to be a part of this. I'm here at our second location. Well, a little bit of history first. I am co-owner of Christies Bakery in Saskatoon, Sask. I own this with my brother. It's a family business that was opened in 1932, and my family took it over in 1965. So we're celebrating 90 years with our bakery, and that's pretty exciting. I think that's quite an accomplishment to have a small business be open for that long. In 2010, we opened up a second location across the bridge, like the east side of the city. And it's a retail location. It's also a cafe, and it's also as a wood-fired pizza. We do wood-fired pizza Napolitana. And why do we do that? Because we already do over 300 SKUs. We decided, oh, let's do another thing. Let's do wood-fired pizza. But the true reason is, once I saw pizza being made in a wood-fired oven, I was just really dazzled by that. And I was just so in love with the fact that the simplicity of the pizza, the dough, the ingredients, it takes quite a skill to be able to manipulate the oven. And I just, in amongst all the inventory, products, things, organizing people, organizing production, organizing fermentation, I just really fell in love with this pizza just for its simplicity. So my brother encouraged us to get going with this wood-fired pizza, and I took classes at the Associazione Verace Pizza Napolitana of the Americas in Los Angeles, because I really wanted to understand like how from the actual teaching perspective, like how to do this authentic style of pizza. And I'm kind of a classicist by nature. I'm a bread baker, so some of the things we do are like classic French baguettes, like so it's all French techniques, pre-ferment, coulishes. We do a very popular just a sourdough cultures, sourdough breads, and also classic viennoiseries. So we do a lot of different things, but I'm just attracted to just the classics and keeping these traditions going forward for future generations, because as everybody knows who's in the industry, it's hard to find people to fall in love with doing hard jobs. You know, you want to tell a guy to stand or a woman or a person to stand in front of a hot pizza oven at 900 degrees and do that and love that. Or you want to have somebody get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to bake bread and love that. You know, it's hard to find that passion. So for me, I just love it. So, and today I'm just going to talk about just going to basically show you how I make a pizza, and because it's so fun. So I'm just going to turn the camera here. Maybe I'll think of some more things to say as I'm working. So talk a little bit about pizza Napolitana. What we do is just we're just using the basic, and this is the classic formula. It's just 00 flour, bulk fermentation 2 hours, overnight fermentation in which is shaped, and then judging by the extensibility or elasticity and how the fermentation is going is really how I'm going to judge the dough and how much stretching or dimpling I'm going to need to do. So basic technique is I'm just dimpling and turning, flipping. Wait, can you see this? Hold on a sec. Is that better?
That's great. Thanks, Tracey.
Okay, and now this part is just, I'm going to do it in slow motion if I can. It's just stretching and turning, stretching and turning. Now there's a term which I use a lot when I'm teaching people how to shape bread. It's called the iron hand with a velvet glove. And this is how, as our tools, which our hands are, is that we have to have strength and control of our muscles, but we also have to have delicacy when we're handling dough. So the best way to describe that is the iron hand and the velvet glove. So this dough is cold, but it's very extensible still. So it's got pretty good shape. I can finish with just a little turn, a toss in the air, or something like this. Simply that. And I found out in Italy, just some sauce, clockwise motion. I had my hand slapped in Italy once for doing this, back and forth, one circle. We use the fior di latte. One thing that happened during COVID is our bakery was fine, but our restaurant was shut down because you know, a lot of things were shut down. So we stopped making all food for, well, 6 months to a year, I believe, and we just pretty much survived on bread, which was really good to us. So pecorino romano, a little drizzle of oil. So one of the things that we pivoted on to keep our pizza oven alive was to do frozen pizza Napolitana, which people could take home and bake in their oven. And we've had really good success with that. So that's something that, as everyone knows, pizza Napolitana is meant to be eaten on the spot. But I'll just show you that. We designed this here to be taken home and heated in your oven, and people are really loving it. It gives the crust a little more crunch, but it's still super delicious, and it's handy for people who just want to have a quick dinner or you know, something for the kids. Okay, here's my pizza here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just check my fire. Now the fire, we're closed today typically, and yesterday, so the fire is started a little cold. The other one component, okay, is the dough, the ingredients, the dough handling, the shaping. The next component is the oven. That's a whole nother beast in itself. So I'm just gonna move my camera over here and check the fire. Because what I like to see when I'm baking is, well, it's a balance between the bottom heat and the top heat. And you know, by Saturday, this thing's heating over and over day after day, the bottom gets really hot. So it's trying to balance that by using, whether you're choosing like big pieces of wood. I have kindling here that works really good if I want to just make sure that I got a good top heat. I don't know if you can see that. That's my favorite, is when I see the flame just crusting over the dome. That's why I know I'm gonna hopefully get like the best blistering. To me, it looks good, so we'll go for it. See how it goes. Okay. I don't know if you can even see that. My favorite part is just placing the pizza down and seeing that crust start to puff. It's very exciting. And then once my edge gets a little hot here, little turn. Little turn. And a little finish on the top. Okay, can you see that? How does that look?
Very nice.
I don't know, and that's why pizza is making it so fun. You get to do that.
That's great, Tracy. I just want to, Judith has a question.
Sure.
She's wondering, and then I know you'll want to look at your finished pizza again. Is your counter dusted with 00 flour, or is it different kind?
Well, I just use my bread flour for the counter because it's cheaper and I have way more of it. So to me, it's fine. I don't have a problem with that. So it's just regular Canadian all-purpose flour, which is what I use for all my bread. Any other questions on that?
Yeah, let's see. Not at the moment. I'm sure everybody would like to look at your pizza.
Oh yeah,
again.
let's look at the pizza.
We
Okay,
distracted.
what am I looking for? Okay, so this is what I'm looking for when I look at a pizza. Like I'm looking for this blistering. This is what I call the drama. It's the blistering, the contrast between the dark and the light. And I could do a pizza at a lower temperature, but have you ever noticed that, like when you're, I don't know if you've had a pizza like this style, but where you see like the crust is a little more brown overall, and it doesn't have the excitement or the lift of this blistering. And that's because I haven't had the right temperature of the oven. I really need the top heat to bring I need the bottom heat, but I need the top heat to bring the blistering. So if the oven is too cold and it's going to like over 90 seconds, 2.5 minutes, then you know you're just going to get a dull looking pizza crust. And it's definitely not as exciting as what you see here. So the heat and managing the oven is really one of the most important things in doing the style of pizza. Also managing your dough and your fermentation, that's important too. But to me is like the artistry and the final analysis will come in and how you maintain the oven. So is the challenge.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Tracey.
And so with our par baked pizzas, we usually typically will bake it, 90% of the way and then freeze them and then package them. And we added a freezer to our lineup, and people grab those things, like 6-10 of those things at once, and then they're set for however the week. Well, 10 may be an exaggeration, but it's really saved our business, our pizza business. So, during COVID has been pretty great. Now it continues to be a popular item.
That's wonderful. You could keep that going.
Oh
Thinking
yeah, it's really
so much
great.
about that, subscriptions and so on. Like
Yeah.
some companies, some businesses doing
Oh yeah,
that.
yeah. Great idea.
Yeah. I think I have another question here. Can we see the leoparding under the pizza?
Sure. Okay, here's my pizza.
Ooh. Very nice.
How's that look? Hot spot. There we go. So far, I'm keeping my pizza dough as simple as possible because, again, we have like over 300 product lines. And so I'd like to experiment with adding some of our sourdough culture, but I just haven't had the time yet. So like, it would be something like to, if we do something again in the future, just to see like the differences, like how that evolves. But right now, the flavor is great, the look is good, and the fact that it's simple really is attractive to me because everything else we do is so complicated.
Right. And Tracey, I just want to mention something because in speaking, you've mentioned to me that you have your pizza oven in a good location to
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
draw people in. Maybe you could tell people a little bit about that.
About the Broadway area?
Yeah, so your other location.
Oh yeah, well, our
Yeah.
original location, built in 1932, is on the west side of town, and so a lot of people make pilgrimages, they like to call it, to our bakery just to buy the product. But then after years and years of people just requesting us to open up on the east side, where we're in the middle of a beautiful community, Broadway area, there's lots of restaurants, there's lots of shops. It's a beautiful old neighborhood, historical, and our business has done really, really well here, especially the cafe. And our bread sales doubled and our pastry sales doubled since we opened up this location. So, and putting the pizza oven in was something that brought life into this location because we do all the production at the original bakery and bring the products here. So having like the warmth and the heat and the drama of the oven has really made this place feel alive. And it's just a great, it's open kitchen. So it's really cool for people to see this in action.
Yeah, it's a great space. You can tell even on video.
Yeah, it's cool. I can show you the
yeah.
other as well.
It's fun to work in. Oh, good.
This
Thank
is
you. Great.
the pizza, our menu for sandwiches. We do lots of sandwiches here, paninis. And then the restaurant is like, we opened the space and we had half of the space, and then a space became open. And so we extended the seating area. And then, yeah, that was great. And then we had the COVID. So that was interesting with all the extra seats and having to close it. But we still, thank goodness for bread. Bread kept us alive.
Yes, that's right. Oh, that's great. Christelle has a question here. She's wondering, what is the packaging process for the frozen pizza? Can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, very simply, we freeze it. We bake them. We freeze it shortly after it's cooled, and then we package in just some heavy-duty heat seal bags, and then we heat seal it, and then we freeze it. We tried everything, vacuum sealing, and first we just went to the most simplest. That would be the most effective. So we just heat seal the bags, put stickers on them, put them in the freezer, and like we fill that freezer. The freezer is full, and by the end of the week, it's empty. People just coming and get them. We also have another location that we sell the frozen pizzas. So it's really good way to, like I said, pizza is kind of like, even though I love it, like it's my most passionate thing next to, also baguette shaping, croissant making, that's pretty good too. But pizza making just gives me such a thrill. I can't describe it. It's just so fun. And it's not the main part of our business, but it's an important part of our business. And I just really want to, can't remember where I was going with that. Getting so excited about the pizza. Just something that, we also have like a mobile pizza oven, Il Bambino, which we do for fairs. So like, that's also fun, like to be outside making the pizza. It's always just such a thrill. I think I was going somewhere where this was like a part of our business, like it's an important part of our business, but bread, like it's all the parts, the bread. Like we're a business that needs all the things. We need the bread, we need the croissants, we need the cookies, we need the scones, we need the sandwiches. And all those parts of the business, we need the pizza. All those things add to our total sales, which even though it's complicated, just makes a good business for us. So it's just another way to operate a business. The thing that got me most excited about pizza napolitana was an article I read in Food and Wine magazine about Anthony Manieri at Una Pizza Napolitana in New York City. I just loved his, like, he was doing pizza napolitana in America, and that's kind of, when it just started getting going 12, 15 years ago, I think. Somebody else might say I'm wrong, I don't know. But he was just so like, okay, I'm doing 4 pizzas only, no appetizers, no salads, nothing, just the pizza. And to me, that was just so exciting because we were just doing so many things and it's so complicated, and just the beautiful simplicity of the pizza was just really, it just got me. Ironically, we just added that simplest like pizza onto all of our other things. It wasn't just like, oh, let's quit making bread and do pizza. It was just something that I had to do. And so my brother supported me and we did it. And I'm still very happy doing it. Now, if I could just share it, like engage, staff and people with the same passion, like that would really, really make my life.
Make it a little bit easier, maybe.
Yeah, I'd ask people, do you love it? Do you love making pizza? They're like, yeah, that's good. Like, how can you say that? It's just so awesome. So I don't know.
We need a test. We need a special test to see if they have the passion.
I know, that's right.
That's wonderful. Well, hey, after watching this video, if they didn't, I'm sure some people will. Thank you for sharing that, Tracey. That's
You're welcome.
amazing. We have a couple of questions. Thank you, everybody, all the chefs. It's been great hearing these ideas. I have a couple of questions, and they kind of came up during a little after Sarah spoke. So I'll pose them to Sarah, but also anyone else, feel free to chime in. First of all, a comment from Judith. She noticed all the interesting shapes and is sharing that her pizza shape is optimistically called rustic, as she puts it. I inadvertently made a heart-shaped pizza this summer and told my delighted grandchildren that I could make any shape except a circle. They ran with that and asked for star-shaped pizza. Okay, Judith, you have to let us know how that turned out, or if you've done it yet. But for a question for Sarah that came up during Sarah's talk from Scott, is that he's wondering if you can cook a gluten-free pizza for celiac customers in a pizza oven used for, used for a gluten pizza base. And I suspect that's something a lot of people have wrestled with. Does Sarah or any of you want to chime in on that? From your
Unfortunately, no, not for celiacs in particular. You know, we've had a lot of conversations with people who are gluten intolerant about enjoying food in our restaurant, or previously when we had the pizzeria. And we would disclose, like, we have ambient flour. So if we were doing a gluten-free pizza crust and we wanted to use the forno, just for that really great top heat, we would have it on a pan, whereas normally with Napolitan style, as you know, it's being baked directly on the hearth. But we'd have that conversation with the clientele and ask them for their preference, because we are lucky enough to have 2 lines. So we would have, you know, a standard traditional oven, and we would say, you know, we can do it in that oven for you. You know, the appearance will be a little bit different. It will be equally tasty, or we're happy to bake it for you on a pan in our forno with the wood fire. But bearing in mind that, frankly, in the restaurant, there's ambient flour, period. So, and it's the same thing with our deep fryer. Some people who are celiac are very, very cautious about cross-contamination, and others are a little bit more relaxed, where they think like, oh, it's coming out of that heat, it's sort of like not going to affect me. So I think like the disclosure part is important, but as a baseline, if you can't have that conversation, just no is the answer.
Right, thank you. Good answer. If anyone else wants to chime in, feel free. I do have a couple other questions that have come up during Tracey's talk. Tracey, David is wondering what wood you are burning.
Right now I'm burning some tamarack. Often we have maple and birch because it grows in the area. Lots of birch here in Saskatchewan. Stay away from poplar because it likes to blow chunks and it's awkward. Like we were talking about that earlier with Sarah, like it's awkward to try to pick chunks of wood out of your cheese. And stay away from pine, because pine is actually, turpentine is made from pine, and so it's toxic. So those are usually stay within those wood family. Tamarack, maple is nice hardwood. You can get it. Any fruit wood is good, and birch. And we get loads of wood. My dad, who's retired from baking now, enjoys splitting the wood in the backyard. And so he splits and stacks our wood for us. And I also get kiln dried hardwood to use for kindling. It's like we call it a kindling, but it's offcut from a cabinet maker here in Saskatoon. So we get bundles of 14 feet. It's huge logs of wood, and my dad also cuts this wood like this on the bandsaw. So he's not in the bakery anymore, but he gets to do something, and he likes it. Nobody bugs him. He's an old Italian guy, you know?
That's great. I mean, you want to give a shout out to your dad and mom who started the bakery.
Oh yeah, yeah. Shout out to my parents, Eno and Janet, that started. Well, they bought Christies Bakery in 1965, and I kept it going. Not only kept it going, but really created a name for this bakery, Christies, that became trusted over generation and over generation. It's like I said, 90 years. It's been like 50 years in my family over. And so I think it's just really, really incredible that we're still here. And my brother and I took it over, even though my mom was like, well, what are you doing? You could do anything with your life. Why are you taking over this bakery? It's just something that you're born with, you know, like my dad's a baker, my uncles are bakers. It's something I have in my blood, and I just had to play it out. I spent time in Toronto working with Susie, and he really turned just changed my brain about what food could be. And so that's kind of how my journey evolved. And then worked on being on Team Canada in 2007 for I was in the baguette and bread category. It's just like, I don't even know why I'm talking about this now, but it's just part of my journey. I forgot the original question.
That's wonderful. You answered it, and people want to hear this. But I have a great question for each of you. I know we're just a little bit over time, but I'm thinking we could squeeze this in. Adam has a great question for everybody. And if you could go back in time when you first started doing pizza from now, are there any tips that you would give yourself? And we can start with Michael, maybe. Do you want to start? Anyone who wants to start.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm still very new. I've never done Napolitana style. I'm just a classically trained chef. So we started doing pizza in November, just before the last lockdown in Toronto. So I would say probably hire Francesco earlier than I did. Would probably be my piece of advice to myself. He saved me a lot of time. No, I think, just be curious and keep trying and keep at it. Yeah.
Great advice. Sarah, do you have any thoughts about that?
My one thought, I was actually talking about this last night because somebody's just brought me over for consulting for their outdoor pizza oven, and they haven't built their build station yet. And I said, just build a bigger build station. You know, when we designed like the pizza counter at Rizzo, it was great and it was beautiful, but I really could have used like another 4 to 6 feet because it was just so tight all the time. And if you can afford the space, I would say to myself, going back in time, just rob space from somewhere, give yourself a few extra feet, because you can have a much more relaxed service that way.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Very practical.
Yeah.
Tracey, any thoughts?
Oh yeah, the thing that comes to mind is just something very practical, which is like the fuel for the fire is wood. And when I was very naive to think like, well, we had built a beautiful oven, like wood storage underneath the oven, and I wasn't planned ahead enough on wood for the winter. And I would get wood deliveries in January, and the wood was frozen and wet. And I had a half a quart of wood under my oven. I was like, oh my God, this sucks so bad. Like, so then I was taking wood into my basement, drying it out, or splitting wood in my basement. And like, I just didn't think about like the whole wood complexity and like just how to maintain it in Canada and like in Saskatchewan anyway. So like now we get ahead on it. We just have developed the entire system around the wood, because if you've ever tried to burn a wet frozen log, it doesn't go well. So I don't know, that's just things that you don't think about when you're romanticized by a pizza and the wood fired oven. Well, there's a lot of work involved in storing wood, chopping wood, having the right kind of wood, and it's an expense, and you burn a lot of wood. So it's romantic, but it's real. It's like it's a heavy factor. Would I do a wood fired oven again? Probably, because it's really, for me, is the best. It's the most exciting.
Wonderful. Pizza just got real. Thank you, everyone. Those are great comments. If I can steal a couple more minutes, I see we have a special guest who's popped on. It's our Chef of the Year West. Our first Canadian Pizza Summit was held last June in Burnaby, a part of Vancouver. I would describe to people not from the area. And Luca Colasanti was our Chef of the Year, which he had a wonderful pizza. I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, so I'll let him tell you the name of it. And Luca, if you could just say hello to everyone and tell them just a little bit about the pizza that you made that day and what inspired it and the name of it. It's got a great name.
Hi everybody. So sorry if I'm a little bit rush because I have to go pick up my employee that's coming from Mexico finally. A big problem for everybody, find the people with love and heart in baking, and especially a big lacking on employee during pandemic, after pandemic. So unfortunately or fortunately, we found those people. Unfortunately, we didn't find any Canadian with the right passion until now. So we have to choose this. If not, we have to shut down a part of the business, because it's impossible to do everything by ourselves. The name of pizza was Figissima, that it's mean in Italian awesome in female version, but also because has a figs on, we play a little bit around the name of figs and awesome in Italy, and was a margherita base practically with some garnish of arugula, a coppa DOP piacentina, and piave cheese grated on top with fresh figs that unfortunately this year also here in Canada, especially in West Coast, we didn't got a great season, so they didn't really grow properly during the season. So it was all imported, but for now. And yeah, was a pizza that I already had in my menu last year. And just for joke with my wife, we decided to participate to the competition. Was my first time, was funny, a nice experience to go inside the field of baking in Vancouver also, because since at least I will turn 9 years in Vancouver next October. Since then, I'm always practically work every single day, so didn't have much time to socializing or participating on some of our field meeting events. But looks like that pandemic in somehow helped a small business to stay alive. We was able to go through to that period, the business growing weekly now since the last lockdown, and especially since when we take out the Green Pass. So pretty happy for the future and that, yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Great to hear from you. And as part of the prize, Luca will be going to compete in March, next March, at the International Pizza Challenge at Pizza Expo in Las Vegas. So it'll be exciting to see if he repeats his winning pizza or tries something else. And it was really great to see those chefs from BC. They really brought imaginative pizzas, and I'm gonna hand it back over to Martin, who was one of the judges that day and had a tough decision. I think they made a great decision. And thanks for joining us, Luca. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Hopefully we will see each other soon. And sorry, but I have to go pick it up those guys, and see you soon, and keep in touch. Okay, enjoy and lovely bread. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Sorry. And Martin, I just want to give it back to Martin for 1 second. We will have a couple of questions I'll have to follow up with the chef. So if we didn't get to your question, we definitely will get it to our panelists, everyone. Thanks for all your great questions and comments. And again, to remind you, today's webinar will be available to all registrants 24 hours after we complete it. So watch for that. You can watch it and go over some of those questions and things you might have been wondering about. And Martin, I just want to give it back to Martin to say another word remind everyone about the Baking Association of Canada and why pizza folks might want to think about joining or getting involved or knowing more about it.
That was a very exciting hour and a quarter. It's too bad we can't have samples. Thanks everybody for joining, and yes, a reminder, please consider joining the Baking Association of Canada. We want to embrace all you pizza makers and support you in any way we can in our advocacy and educational program. So I look forward to seeing you all next time.
Thank you, Martin. And on this web page where you get to the webinar, there is a link through, but it's baking.ca is the website. So you can read up on all the things that these folks are up to. They do a lot in education programs, and I always enjoy them. You get a lot from just meeting other people like yourselves. And believe me, you will find people with a lot in common. So I just want to let everyone know that we do have the Canadian Pizza Summit East and Chef of the Year competition coming up on October 24th. The chef spots are full, but you can come if you're in the area, you can come and watch. It's very exciting. You get first look at all sort of the trends and what pizzerias are doing. Some of these folks enter every year. They get very excited. They do some really imaginative things with their pizza. And I also want to thank everyone for joining us. I know you guys are busy. Our panelists are busy, our wonderful chefs. Can't thank you enough for joining us and being so open with your experiences and your techniques and your knowledge. And with everyone who came today, we hope that these ideas shared will inspire you in your own pizza making. And please go forth and share your passion for pizza. And hopefully you can all find those people that are a good fit with your pizzeria who have that same passion and appetite for hard work.